Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya. Same. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. There are some videos that I see. I am a little bit confused because some people are used to collecting money and then mounting their camera to say nonsense. Now, I am going to say this for some people, all money is not money. And then a little reminder that not all kin folks or all skin folks are kin folks. Because some of you are really wilding. Because tell me how an elderly man will mount his camera on live television and said what he said, trying to manipulate black people into agreeing to something that they do not align themselves with. That is never ever going to work. If they paid you money to come out and speak what you said, that it's your problem, not mine. And before I continue, please, I think that your hairline is like, disturbing my eyes. It is. Now, I am going to say this. How do you wake up and also agree? Because I remember that before the election, when this man was campaigning, when he brought out sneakers to sell to golden sneakers to sell to black people, and he said that he has the same experience as that he is being persecuted, and black people like, how are you telling me that this man black experience is the same as or Agent Orange experience? How is that even? I cannot. The math ain't mathing. And you, as an old man, is sitting on it and saying it with your mouth. That shows how crazy you are. Let's get into this video.
Stephen A. Smith has lost his mind just like he lost his hairline. What the fuck is he talking about?
But I got to tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through. He wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised against him, it is something that black folks throughout this nation can relate to with some of our historic, iconic figures. We've seen that happen throughout society. So no matter what race, what ethnicity you may emanate from, we relate to you when you're suffering like that because we know we have. And that's what he articulated.
Please explain to me how the black community relates to Donald Trump. This man has several indictments, 91 criminal charges, 2 impeachments, tried to overthrow the government where he called on his supporters to storm the Capitol where they wind up killing 2 Capitol Police and also wind up being shot by Capitol Police. You explain to me how we can relate to somebody who had to pay a settlement for rape allegations, then had to pay restitution on top of that for defamation. Why is it and who is it that keeps platforming these quote-unquote black activists that's supposed to speak for the entirety of our community, always trying to speak and lead with stereotypical tropes of African Americans, like black people and criminality are synonymous when they're not? Stephen A. Smith needs to learn how to turn the TV off and read a motherfucking book, because we loved power. Oh yeah, we love fake shit. But in reality, black people aren't criminals. In reality, black people are entrepreneurs. We're business owners. We're CEOs. We're leaders. We're lawyers. We're lawmakers. The thing that's so stupid about this is Stephen A. Smith is too damn grown and too damn old to be acting this stupid. He reminds me of them dumbass kids I grew up with who had a fixation with people who were into literacy and spoke with dictation. They're saying that you're not black. You don't speak black. What the fuck does speaking black? Does that mean I have to speak in fluent ebonics for me to be black? That's the most anti-black shit I've ever heard. One of our best orators was Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey. What the fuck are you talking about? Which speaks to the fact when black people actually take a step back and listen to what the fuck they're saying, they are perpetuating white supremacy. Just recently, Charlemagne, he just went after DEI. Talking about, oh, well, it's stupid, it's trash. Knowing that DEI is a precursor. We just saw them overrule affirmative action where they're not trying to put people in places that need equity and inclusion and diversity. How can you just recently go on Joy Reid's show talking about how you want to see upward mobility and you want to see black people in positions where we can build our wealth, but yet when they don't let us in the room, how the fuck are we supposed to build our wealth? Out of what? Out of nothing? The only reason why your ass was even on the Daily Show was because of DEI. They needed a black face, and unfortunately, they picked your ass. And if you need education, I suggest you go watch Roland. He did a perfect synopsis on why DEI is important. Y'all need to move out of yesteryear because who we used to be ain't who we are today. All that shit that we let fly from years ago, we ain't letting fly no more. We all about accountability and breaking generational curses, which is why we all support Diddy going to jail. That's if he did it. But my point is, we want safe communities. We want to be able to walk down the street and know that we don't have a target on our back from criminals or from police. We just don't want stereotyping. We want safe communities. We want policing. We just don't want the profiling. And I'm going to leave y'all with a quote from one of my favorite people, Vice President Kamala Harris, when she was DA, and what she wanted to do with the criminal justice system, because she was one of the first people fighting for criminal justice and trying to make sure that police represented the communities that they served.
Nobody cares about the fact that we've got a bunch of young black and brown men in prison. That argument is not working. What I suggest we do as African Americans is own this issue in law enforcement and then define it in the way that works for us, because it is a myth to say that African Americans don't want law enforcement. We do. We want our grandmothers to be able to walk to church and be safe. We want our babies to be able to walk to the park and be safe. What we don't want is racial profiling. What we don't want is excessive force.
That's right.
What we don't want is to have our civil liberties and civil rights be stripped. But we do want law enforcement. So let's define it in the way that works for us by saying, I want community policing. I want a police department that works in my neighborhood and in my community that reflects the mores and the culture and respects my grandmother, again, when they walk in to talk to her. I want a system of accountability in the criminal justice system that says law enforcement needs to own crime prevention as much as it talks about long sentences. Because nationally, only 18% of serious crime results in an arrest. So if I, as law enforcement, with my responsibility to keep you safe, only talk about keeping you safe by sending people to prison for a long time, I'm necessarily going to fall short, because the vast majority of that crime's not even hitting my system. So if I'm going to keep my promise to you to keep you safe, I better talk with you about what I'm doing in terms of crime prevention, which means recognizing that people coming out of the state prisons, 60% will recidivate if we don't get them in reentry programs, if we don't get them in job training, job readiness, get them in programs that deal with their substance abuse, get them in meaningful housing and employment so they don't recidivate. We could talk about it in terms of, is it the right thing to do? Of course it is. But you know, I'm done talking about it like that. I'll just talk about it on this basis. If that person commits another crime, I have to spend $10,000 to try that felony. They sit in my county jail for $35,000 a year. I'm running a reentry program out of my office in San Francisco DA's office that brings folks back into the community at an expense of $8,000 a year, guarantees them employment, guarantees them meaningful reunification with their family.
Well, racism is quite expensive. And racism is didactic, racism is insane. And y'all are so much good went into. Now let me start again. The main reason we have President Trump right now, the main reason we have Trump, we had Trump the first time, and the main reason we have Trump again here, is because this black man, with his stellar record, with this undeniable record, zero scandals, and just plain professionalism and just goodness, was in the White House. And you racist sons of bitches couldn't take it. Buckle up. I'm gonna play you about a 6-minute clip of a summary of his accomplishments. It's basically a highlight of his accomplishments. But it's not everything he did, but a 6-minute summary.
Under President Obama, the high school graduation rate in this country hit 83%. That's the highest it has ever been in the history of this country. When President Obama took office in 2009, the country was in an economic freefall, plunging into an economic abyss. Unemployment hit 10%. Unemployment is now at 4.7%. Under President Obama, we have had 82 straight months of private sector job growth. That is the longest streak ever in the history of our country of consecutive months in which there have been job growth and not job losses. Under President Obama, we put a rover on Mars. Under President Obama, we have had the first drop in the federal prison population in decades. Under President Obama, after a concerted effort by his administration, homelessness among American veterans dropped by half. Under President Obama, 16 countries around the globe gave up every last ounce of their highly enriched uranium, taking away the risk that it could be stolen or misused to assemble the core of a nuclear weapon or to make a dirty bomb. President Obama convened biannual nuclear security summits for the first time in our country to convince other nations to get rid of their loose nuclear material, and 16 of them did that completely. Under President Obama, your credit card company is no longer allowed to raise your interest rate without notifying you. Under President Obama, if you work for a federal contractor, that company that you work for can no longer fire you just because you're gay or trans. Under President Obama, our country's dependence on foreign oil plummeted. Today, on the last day of the Obama administration, the CIA published the final update to its online document file that it calls Bin Laden's bookshelf. It's images and translations of all the documents that they took out of Bin Laden's compound in Pakistan when Navy SEALs were able to go through it all in 2011. We all now have public access to the complete contents of Bin Laden's bookshelf because President Obama in 2011 ordered the Navy SEALs into Pakistan on that mission that killed Bin Laden. Under President Obama, we got our nation's first chief technology officer. Under a deal engineered by President Obama, Syria got rid of its chemical weapons. For everything else wrong in Syria, Bashar al-Assad had a huge chemical weapons arsenal. Under Barack Obama, it was handed over and destroyed, certified destroyed by international observers. Under President Obama, the U.S. government banned torture by U.S. personnel in all circumstances. Under President Obama, a U.S. embassy opened in Cuba. We started to normalize relations between our two countries after a half-century of a frozen, failed Cold War standoff. President Obama overturned the ban on scientific research using stem cells. President Obama upped by billions of dollars the resources available for mental health care in the VA. The Obama administration was the first administration ever to voluntarily release the lists of people who visited the White House. First presidency to ever do that. On marriage equality, President Obama did a miraculous thing among politicians. He changed his mind. And under this president, gay couples finally got all the same options as straight couples. You can date, you can get married, you can get divorced, you can live in sin. No more excuses, you guys. Under this president, the FDA started regulating tobacco, which means that cigarette companies, for the first time, have to actually tell you what they put in their cigarettes. When President Obama took office, the deficit was about 10% of our GDP. It is now about 3% of our GDP. Under President Obama, banks have to face stress tests so they can no longer take the whole economy down with them when they collapse because of their own risky practices. Under President Obama, banks can no longer use your money that you deposit in that bank to make risky bets for their own profits. After 9/11, the previous administration built a government registry that targeted Muslim men. Under President Obama, that registry was scrapped amid fears that the next administration might re-up it. President Obama cracked down on the scam for-profit colleges that happily took the money that you borrowed with your student loans, but then didn't give you an education in exchange for that money. The Obama administration shut down the bullpucky accreditor that said those colleges were real colleges when they were not. Under President Obama, solitary confinement was banned for juveniles serving time in federal prison. Under President Obama, our secret overseas prisons got shut down. Under the previous administration, when the remains of U.S. service members were flown home in flag-draped caskets to the air base at Dover, that was a secret and there were no cameras allowed. Under President Obama, that secrecy order was undone. And now, under President Obama, the government will pay travel expenses for the families of fallen soldiers to be there when their loved ones remains arrive on that tarmac. Under President Obama, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell ban was repealed in the military, as was the ban on transgender soldiers serving openly. And all combat positions were open to women. President Obama, arguably, saved Medicare. He made Medicare solvent for years to come because he slowed down the growth of healthcare costs. That is what was eating that program. President Obama also, inarguably, saved the U.S. auto industry. He saved the U.S. auto industry and reorganized GM. They paid back their bailout money, and American automakers are now among the largest, most profitable car companies in the world, and millions of American jobs tell that tale. Tens of billions of dollars that used to get paid to the banks for writing student loan programs instead now go to Pell Grants to help people go to college who otherwise couldn't afford it. Oh, and you can't be denied health insurance because of a pre-existing condition. And you can't be charged more for your health insurance because you're a woman. And your health insurance can't put a lifetime cap on what you're allowed to need because of your health care. And 20 million Americans got health insurance because of President Obama.
So yeah, you guys went from all of that undeniable awesomeness. Oh yeah, one thing I want to emphasize, with the Iranian thing they talked about, he actually got Russia to be a part of it. Russia was actually helping the United States monitor Iran's nuclear disarmament, Iran's nuclear decommissioning. He partnered with Russia. Russia had better, more even, like near peer even relationship with the United States during President Obama than what Trump has now. Trump thinks he's all good with Russia, but Russia's actually manipulating him. But, you know, y'all went from that to what's happening now. The outright destruction of the luxury goods market. I was watching something about that tonight. This is what y'all went to. So yeah, racism is very expensive, folks. I hope you're happy.
So this is all I got from this video, and sincerely speaking, I do not understand where that man with his hairline missing, where he got this, that are black people and Miss Agent Orange have a lot in common. What do you mean that they have a lot in common? Because you people are just gaslighting and you are a coon and a tap dancer. Because tell me, what is the connection? Somebody with how many felonies, right? Has what exactly do they have in common with black people? Some people really just wake up every day to, like, make some silly comments just to make sure that black people are inside the discussion. Because if not, what do you as a silly black man have to talk about without bringing black people into it? So you sat down as a black man you have, like, taken your time to navigate through what this man, what the felonies he had, right? And black people's experiences and all that, how are they the same? What is he experiencing that black people are experiencing, or what are black people experiencing that he is experiencing? Because I really need to understand where this mindset and this discussion is coming from, because some people can really sell their soul for any penny. You think all money is all money, and you think all skin folk is skin folk. Of course not. People like this are part of black community problem. When you wake up to see an elderly person speak like this, sometimes I feel like I don't know what is going on, because when you see younger ones that are supposed to behave like kids, they are behaving maturely. Then when you see older people that are supposed to be checkmating what is going on in Black community, every other places and all that, they are the childish one. Because tell me how that man mounted on that camera or on that seat with all the cameras picturing him and all that, he has the nerves to lie in front of people and using Black people's name to even say the lie. That is disgusting, very disgusting attitude. Because tell me how. Tell me how Black experiences are the same thing as him. Because I remember when he came out to say that Black people are going through the same thing, like he is being executed for crimes, and he also loves sneakers. Who cares? Who really cares? What sneakers are you talking about? When things are going wrong every day. Racism is expensive, and you all can actually see how expensive it is. You all saw the person that is fit and good enough for the job, and you all say, no, she is not fit for the job, and you choose the person that is not qualified, and you all are still pushing him under Black people's throat and every other person's throat. What does that got to do with Black people? Did Black people have 30-something felonies? Like he said that he had the same experience as Black people, which heaven knows that he had nothing. Then why has he been poking Black people since he came into this administration? Some of you all are just not okay. You just come out here on the internet, like mount your camera and sell bullshit and think it's okay. That is not okay. Some of you all are moving wild. Now you can see during Obama's regime and presently what it's going on. This is to tell you that this is how majority of people will pass without even, the truth is something you will never speak. And when you don't speak the truth, one thing will happen to you, which I will not say here. Racism is expensive, and it is costing people everything. Their money, their job, their life, everything. And this is how it's going to continue till you all retrace your steps. I am drawing this cut in here. Bye for now.